Hello, Book-Tube-A, Nal here. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to try to do this quick in one take. I'm probably going to mess up, so please forgive me. But I couldn't resist because this challenge sounded so much fun, and that is to create a class that you would like to teach, or probably take in my case, based upon one book from your TBR and what the theme would be. And for me, that class would be Selective Interpretation, Foreign Perceptions of Japan via Print Media. And so for this course, I would start with the book that is actually on my TBR, and that is The Dancing Girl of Izu, which is a book about, it's a collection of short stories by a man who was trying to sort through his growing up in the turn of the century, 1900s. I think this was originally written in the 1920s. And so it's a really good fictional, but still has a fiction that has a core in history. And I think that'd be a really good way. And where they're short stories, I think it would be kind of an easy way to get into. Another short read about a similar area is also fiction, but it incorporates the foreign part of this into this, not just, the American, during this time, the Japanese were horrible monsters, foreigners who, teamed up for us against the world. And that is The Samurai's Garden by Gail Tsukiyama. And this follows a man from China who has to move to a relative's island in Japan to recover from a very serious illness. And it's right before the start of the Second World War, so there's a lot of tensions between the two countries. And it's really about finding self-peace and comfort and your place in the world. And I thought, well, it was a really good period piece, but it also kind of transcended that time. It was a quick read. It was a lot of fun. Now, jumping ahead to probably an era in the past few decades is a book that is, I don't know how accurate it is of interpretation of the era or the place, but it's called After Dark, and it's by Haruki Murakami. Murakami, again, pronunciations are going to be murdered here. Forgive me. I'm rushing and blabbing. And this takes place over a single night in Tokyo, and it follows a girl who runs into one of her sister's would-be exes, and all kinds of crazy fallout from this as each tries to, kind of figure out who she is and why she just doesn't want to go home. And then there's another part with her sister, and it gets kind of existential. I'm still not sure I entirely understood it, but it was a fun, quick read. Next, I would kind of shift mediums, and I would go over to manga, because that's another print media that a lot of people may get introduced to the country by. And this was really hard, but to kind of keep with the time flow, I went with a clamp work, which is Shirahime Sayu. Again, please, I'm tongue-tied tonight. Forgive me, it's been a long day. And this is just a really short collection of one-shot stories by a very notable artist writing group called Clamp. And it still has a flavor of the traditional folktale in it, but it also represents a group that has been really influential in the manga world. Alternatively, I will put as a side note, as far as if you're going to try to keep up with the spirit of Japan and showing that in a more spiritual, artsy way, I would love to give a shout out to Natsume Yujinsho, or Book of Friends, which also has 5 seasons now, I think. I love it, both the manga and the anime, and I think it's a really good representation of sort of the relationship to nature that the culture has in their history, even though it's kind of fading, and it's just warm and cuddly and lovely. Then I would jump ahead again to a similar, I'm staying in more the modern, and this is actually a memoir, and I have a love-hate relationship with this book, I'll be entirely honest, and it's Japan Took the Jap Out of Me by Lisa Feinberg Cook. And this follows the story of a Jewish American princess, JAP in this case, who follows her husband to Japan, who goes there to work. And it's about her transition and how the country kind of makes her grow up. I'll leave my opinions out of this, but it was really eye-opening and kind of scary to see this story, because it is about going to a foreign country where you know nothing and without even really the passion or drive to go there, and how you adapt and how that experience can change you. They literally moved like 3 days after their wedding. So it's all a lot at once. And so I respect that, and I do think that she does come to some solid conclusions and does make some changes. And I hope her all for the best for this. But I thought it would be a really great thing for someone who might be thinking of traveling over there to do, to read through or go through and see how it would really hit you. Then I would kind of make it a little bit fun because, like I said, manga anime is one way that people will come to the country, and so I would try to go with something that was a little more mainstream, a little more action, something people may have heard of, something like, uh, say the Bleach series, which I don't have volume one of, or Death Note, which is more modern and kind of in our era, or like Attack on Titan, which is huge right now. Just to kind of show that, this is, you have a very serious view of the country, but then you have, the Pokemons of the world, and, the very fighting teams, action animes that a lot of people would come through. And so I just kind of touch base on that because it's fun. And if I've already given them a ton of ratings, it would be quick and just get that out of there, and a little bit of self-indulgent. And the last book on the list would be a case of incorporation of a culture. And I would assign Across the Nightingale Floor, which is a completely fictional book, and it takes place in a not Japan, if you will, by a author who is a little bit of a fanboy of sorts. And it just creates this world about a man in exile who has sort of these special abilities and ends up with a fighting clan and kind of navigating this historical feudal era system with, trying to hide who he is, where he comes from, and dealing, with the powers that end up in his hands and multiple wars. And it has a really good feel of the feudal era without actually taking place in Japan. Like all the traditions, all the names are very much inspired by the country. But it's a 3-book series, or no, I think there are 4 books in this series. Forgive me, I can't remember right now. I've only been able to read the first 2. But I really, really love it. I wish more people would read it, and so I feel kind of obligated to include it. So that's my list. Thank you for suffering through my rambling, and I hope that, maybe you might want to pick up one of these books, or I'd be happy to tell you more. And thanks. It was fun. Toodles.